Hey everybody, thanks for joining me again on the Guru Brew. Today we're going to be discussing computer processors and also the fans that are mounted on them to cool them. You know, computer CPUs, the actual processors themselves, are so very reliable that not very often do we need to remove them out of their sockets for any kind of maintenance. Usually a processor will live its whole life on a board and never be touched. Although the fans that live above them and are responsible for cooling the chips often get dirty and have to be removed to clean underneath and satisfy airflow again. So on this edition of the Guru Brew, we're going to learn how to take off a CPU, that is a processor, remove the fan, clean the fan, and put the whole thing back together again. So hang out with me and we'll get started. Well, okay, here we are at my workbench, and I brought out a couple motherboards that have fans, heat sink, and the processors already on the motherboard, and then that way we can get a better look at what we're doing rather than trying to shove a camera into a case. So here's a different style on each of these, and they're pretty much all the same. You might find different style fans, different style heat sinks, but it all works the same. There's a fan that blows into a cooling device of some sort, usually aluminum, and then underneath the aluminum block is the actual socket that holds the processor. That is down there, and most of the sockets release very similar, and we'll get into that in a minute. The first thing I want to do is direct your attention to the top of this fan. I'm sure you can see the dirt in there, and the dirt is slowly killing this processor, and as soon as it can't breathe anymore, eventually it will just die. And if you care about this computer and you want it to live, you need to remove this fan, clean out all these fins, and remove the dirt or replace the fan itself. If it's not really bad, you can use some alcohol pads like I have here, and that way it'll save you from having to remove the actual fan. In a case where it's really bad, this might not work, but often you can just take a alcohol pad like this on your finger and grab a fin and just keep working around like this and getting above the fan blade and below until eventually you've worked your way around to the end and you've gotten, see all that dirt on there, till you've gotten yourself all the way around. Now, I don't know how much you can see on this one, but the problem is just not with the fan on this one. The problem is also the cooling fins on the aluminum are also blocked up with dirt. So this is going to require us to completely take this fan off there. So to remove this fan housing, the best thing to do is just have a good look at it from the side, from all angles, and see if there are any screws. Like this one, there are some screws down in here that this fan will come right up, and you can remove the fan without actually taking the block up. However, some of them will require you to take it off as one unit, and this is one of those. So the first thing that comes to my attention that's obvious is these clamps, and if you pull one of these clamps up, you'll notice that the processor is wanting to release down here on the bottom. Now, a word of caution: when you're taking these clamps up, the processor has hundreds of pins on it, and they're very small and delicate, and if you bend a pin, you're all done. So great care must be taken that you pull the processor straight up without any side to side movement or shifting left to right that would cause a damaged pin, because like I said, they're very difficult to straighten once you bend them. So I am going to unplug the fan from here, and generally they're keyed, so you want to just make sure it's keyed, or take a note that, you know, the yellow wire was on the outside of the case. So I'm going to apply just pressure here as I lift both of these clamps, and if I very carefully begin to pull straight up. Now something is holding this, and I can see it says clamp right here, so I'm going to just take my fingernail and pull on that a little bit, and I'm also going to do the other side here with a screwdriver in the front. What I'm doing is I'm separating these clamps from the actual block. And see if this will pull up now. I've got one more holding here. Now this clamp is very close to this capacitor, so you have to be very careful that you don't do any damage. Now I'm going to take the whole unit as one and carefully lift up. Okay, now this processor is still mounted down in its socket, so we're safe. It has a separate clamp. I wasn't sure if it did, but it does. So I'll proceed to show you how to take that off and clean up this goo. Let's set this aside for just a second and take a look at this this unit here. This is the fan with the cooling block, which is made of aluminum, and the fins. We're going to have to take all this stuff off here and get a vacuum and clean it up really well. So let's do that. Now this is pressed fit in here. A lot of times if you squeeze, look at all that dirt. I've got my shop vac here, and I've got a artist brush that's fairly coarse. I'm just going to go ahead and clean this up and suck away all the dirt. Okay, once you've used the vacuum and the brush on the pieces, you're going to have to get the rest with these cotton swab pads. And they work the best because they evaporate fairly quickly. And I just take it fin for fin and use my finger and clean every single blade on the fan. And I'll do it on the top, and then I'll flip it over and I'll do it on the bottom. Now, really the best thing to do would be just to go on Newegg or something and buy yourself a new processor fan. But there's nothing wrong with cleaning up an old one, and especially if it's quiet and there's no history of any problems with it. There's no reason why you couldn't recycle it and just use it again and sparkle it up just like new. So I've used my alcohol pad and I've cleaned up my parts, and it doesn't hurt to clean up your plastic pieces either. And that's left with the bottom of the heat sink. And let's look at this board too at the same time. The processor is located right here, and I do not want to, well, yeah, let's go ahead and take this out. You'll probably never have to do this, but if you do, you can lift this little lever by pushing it to the side and then straight up. You'll hear a little clicking. Now, right here, there's a little mark. It's a little silver or gold mark on the side, and that is different than this circle. So you have to be mindful of how this is positioned in there. And I'm just going to pull it out to show you the little pins that you should never bend. And if you look at this corner over here, there are no pins. And so that is also marked with that silver corner that goes right back down into there. So if you do have to remove one of these or put one in, you just simply take this and line it up with the corner with no pins, no side movement. Just be very gentle. Just let it seat itself down in there, and then hold down on it and put this lever back down until it snaps into place. We have to clean off the compound on the top of this chip so that we can reapply more. You never want to run these dry. There's different kind of compounds that you can buy. This came from Radio Shack. It's called silicone based heat sink compound. Here's another kind that comes in a syringe that has metal flakes in it, and there's a lot of different kinds. It all does the same thing. It helps conduct heat so that the heat that's coming off this chip has good contact with this metal plate, is all it does. So I'm just now using a alcohol swab pad to clean up the top of this processor, and then I'll do the same thing on the bottom of this. I don't want any old gooey stuff. Do not try to reuse the compound. It's not a good idea to reuse it. You want to put new stuff on there because the job of it is to move the heat, and you don't want it compromised with just some old goo that's half dried out. So once this stuff's dried up, it doesn't take a whole lot of this compound, just a little dab right on the top, right like that. And just rub it around with your fingers so that all the exposed areas are touched. You don't want an excessive lot, because what's going to happen, it's going to squeeze out and just make a mess, and you don't want it oozing down into your other parts. And then we're just going to go ahead and set our heat sink right back down the way it came on, just like that. And then we're going to have to reassemble our fan. You're just going to have to remember how things were when you're taking them apart. And if it helps, you can always take a picture of the parts, and that will give you a good visual aid to look at. This clamp is fairly unusual, I will tell you. A lot of clamps look the same. This one is kind of unusual, even though it does work the same as most of the other ones. I'm sorry I have to do this off camera for just a second to make sure I get this in the right spot. I'm just lining up the tabs here. Okay, I've got my plastic piece on, and I'm tightening the clamps back up and plugging in the fan. There we go. Let's get a look at it, see what we've done. So there you have it. Boy, it sure looks a lot better than when we started. The cooling fins look nice and clean. There's no dirt. We put new grease on the processor, and it should conduct heat like it were brand new. So, hey, I hope you've enjoyed and learned something from this edition. Just remember, I keep saying it over and over, dirt and dust and heat destroy computers, and the processor unit depends on decent airflow, and that's why it has a fan on it, to make sure that it stays nice and cool. So good luck with your projects, and thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care. Hey guys, this is Steve. Thanks for watching. Hey, don't forget to subscribe if you like this video, and be sure to rate and comment. See ya.